Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, it's Regit and welcome back to the Battle Cats Beginner's Guide. Today we're going to hopefully be taking on and finishing off and beating Crazed Cow. The original plan was to use this new levelling up to go onto the Crazed Fish, but as chronologically Crazed Cow comes first and I'm able to do it with this new upgraded Bahamut, we might as well do this first and then apply the same logic to Crazed Fish when that comes along. So now this, using our newly level 30 Bahamut, is a guide to be able to do Crazed Cow. Headshaker, insane. The Crazed Cow stage mainly relies on you having as many meat shields as possible, so you are going to need both of the basic meat shields, both of the Crazed meat shields. If you haven't got them, I'd advise that you get them. There is a reason that the series is structured in this way. It's recommending which Crazed Cats are best to do first. Now I'm aware I get asked almost every guide, but what if I don't have a razor? What are you doing with a razor, you disgusting individual? Well, the reason that I bring a razor is usually because it's needed, especially in stages where it's going to put up a greater defense by surviving more hits and actually allowing you to get off the attacks that you need. However, in this stage, I think you have a better chance of getting away without having an eraser because of the fact that you need to prioritise volume of meat shields over the strength of meat shields. And ultimately, with a huge stack attacking you at the same time, almost everything's going to die instantly, I think. So it might be possible to do it with just the wall cat. It's always a useful rule of thumb to just try it. If you're not bringing any items into it, you are losing, accounting for the course of time, literally nothing from giving it a go. Then I'd also recommend having Samba. If you don't have it, there are alternatives, but actually you'll want to fill out even more spaces with alternatives, and I think by this point it would just be useful if you bought Samba. Doesn't really cost that much cat food, and it's a good meat shield. The other meat shields that I've had to use are Sumo and Little Cat, which aren't very good. If you have, for example, Cat Burger, our Adori Cat, or any kind of little meat shields like that, they are of more use. Gold Cat, for example, if you happen to have that finicky niche super rare but does much the same as the basic cat. But if you are really struggling for units, things like Sumo from the specials and Lil Cat from the specials, don't use Lil Tank because both that and the Lil Tank will die instantly and that is cheaper, are things that you can use. An example of a particularly good meat shield to use if you have it would be Jiangshi Cat, the true form of Pogo Cat. But the thing is, at this point in the series, I have absolutely no expectation that anybody would be able to get cat fruit true forms. But if for some reason your order is so vastly different to this series and you have Jiangshi, definitely use that. Its 2 lives, essentially, is going to be invaluable for the kind of stage that this is. Honestly, as many meat shields as you can possibly muster, I would honestly recommend having 7 of them if you can get 7 together, because this is what the level is all about. Then you'll need UFO Cat, not something we've used much, but it's important here because you can stack a lot of them together behind your meat shield so that they don't get killed, and together have a huge area of effect which goes against a stack of Crazed Cow enemies and does a lot of area damage. Then Valkyrie for some stab damage, not that great for the level, but ultimately you need all the damage you can get. And then Bahamut for the best damage you can muster, no Gacha in the game so far, but if you have something that is, for example, anti-normal enemies, if you've been lucky enough to get a shadow unit, for example, or something like Nekaluga, which can freeze normal type enemies, use that in place of Valkyrie. But obviously these are Ubers, I don't have them, and even if I did, I'm not going to use it in a guide that's there for everyone. But yes, if you have an Uber alternative that outranges a Crazed Cow, definitely use that in place of Valkyrie. Vaguely speaking, any unit that has area of effect is a good place to start when looking in your filter for units to use. Things that are single target aren't going to have the effect you need because this level is based on trying to defeat a huge number of stacked enemies rather than one strong one, which is how most of the Crazed stages are put together. You'll not want anything with hugely long range like a nerd cat or Megaphrodite, because crazed cows, you'll be fighting them very close to your army, and anything like that will just overshoot them. So do bear that in mind. You won't need to bring a rich cat to the battle. The start of the battle gives you plenty of time to get your worker cat up to max, and you'll need to utilise sniper cat, very important, to help you within the main stage of the battle and the initial stage. As well as that, CPU, because it's all about spam, and CPU will help you do that. You'll want to start off the level by turning off your cat's CPU, and from then on you want to upgrade your worker cat and just put out singular crazed cats. That, in combination with the sniper, will get rid of all of the initial BB bunnies. I'm just waiting until you see the crazed cow here get relatively close to you. Then comes the point to add the crazed tank to the mix, at which point you should just put both of them out repeatedly as you upgrade your worker cat. This, in combination with the sniper, will kill off the crazed cow very slowly, which is what you want to be able to build up cash, and you won't advance through your units towards the base if you keep spamming these two. Slower units, although they should really have the same amount of health, don't seem to have quite as good an effect. Saying that though, once you've reached level 8 worker cat, it would make sense to put out some slower units just so your fast units get killed off, and then when you've killed the crazed cow, you get even more time before you hit the base because your units are too slow to get there quickly. As you can see though, it does rip through them, so you may need the occasional other meat shield. Once you've killed the crazed cow, you might want to bring out a few erasers just to stem the flow of any crazed cows that come out. They do come out soon after you start hitting the base, but one crazed cat like that isn't going to bite into it enough to do enough damage to instantly get them out. Stemming the flow of them will mean they'll be easier to manage, but ultimately the next stage in managing them will require the CPU to be on. So be spamming all the meat shields you can just to build up a little layer of protection, and then when they get about halfway or nearer across the battlefield, it's time to activate your CPU. Why is it useful to make sure that you have these crazed cows near to your base? Well, it's just the general technique of luring. In this case, luring is useful because with such a huge amount of crazed cows that you need to defeat, you need to be getting damage to them as quickly as possible. When they're further back across the battlefield, your units are going to take longer to get to it, and because of differences in speed, are going to spread out more, so you don't get the same kind of protection and big load of area effect damage from loads of different units at the same time that you would when just spawning units and half a second later they're at the range they need to be to make the attack. So essentially, it's just allowing yourself to get all your units in one clump to do the damage instead of them spacing out and doing you no favours at all. Then that will use the monies that you have to spam everything it possibly can as quickly as it possibly can, and you just have to leave the rest to chance and hope that it works. The aerial attacks of the UFO cat are actually rather surprisingly useful here. Even though it's only a second form unit, it's actually in some ways just as useful as your Bahamut, but you will need Bahamut to get shots in for things to work, otherwise, as you can see, the crazed cows will stack up and it will all be too much. Looks like we only just escaped from it there. The crazed cows are getting very close to killing my Bahamut, and I think at that point would have had to concede defeat and force close to try again. So you should really bear that in mind when doing this level. Sometimes the CPU just won't give you the desired effect, and you just have to keep trying until you get that desired effect. There will be continuous crazed cows on from that point, but nowhere near enough to cause as much trouble as you get at the start of the battle, so just leave. Have a cup of tea. It really doesn't matter what you do, the CPU will take care of the rest of it. If it's got past the original wave, you have nothing to worry about. Just wait it out until the level's complete. Upon completing the stage, you'll get your 30 cat food, a leadership, and the crazed cow as a guaranteed reward. Now, as well as there being a stage difference in how the crazed cow is structured, there's also a kind of difference in the use of crazed cow. There will be very few points in which the crazed cow becomes the unit that you will need to be able to beat a level you previously couldn't. What the crazed cow really helps you with is making things faster. It's a lot faster than giraffe cat or lion cat if you can true form it, and so will just get things done faster, and ultimately ultimately it's also one more crazed unit that you'll need along with all the others to be able to start unlocking the true forms of these crazed units later on, which means that eventually we will have to get ourselves Crazed Axe, which I'm definitely leaving for now because it's both very difficult and also, in my experience and quite a lot of other people's, a unit that almost no one uses ever. Reason being that there are far better anti-red units with useful amounts of range, whereas that's a melee unit ultimately dies off quite quickly. All said, that marks the end of my guide to the Crazed Cow no Gacha. If you have any queries, be sure to ask me them instead of having a go or any such alternative. I am happy to talk to you and I'll be there to talk to you. The next time I see you, I believe, will be in the guide for the Crazed Fish, which comes soon chronologically after the Crazed Cow, where we will be applying the same principle of a level 30 Bahamut to a level with a few more interesting facets than the Crazed Cow level, but one that we should also be able to do in order to unlock a very versatile and important unit. For now, I'll bid you goodbye, and I hope you enjoyed.